Hello, and welcome to the 186 Special Education Specialist EC-12 Preparation Manual Overview webinar, originally held March 26, 2025. My name is Kelly Torrey, and I'm a Test Development Specialist on the Educator Standards and Testing team. I have had the pleasure of supporting the development and launch of the new 186 Special Education Specialist exam over the past few years, so really excited to be here with you all to share more information about the first preparation resource available for the new 186 exam. The objectives for today's webinar are: first, participants will engage with an overview of the 186 Special Education Specialist Preparation Manual resource, closely examine the overall design components of the constructed response item, as well as review suggested approaches for selected response and cluster items. As an overview of the agenda for today's webinar, we will begin with exam development timeline and background information, review selected response and cluster items, review the constructed response item, and then preview our CRI deep dive and work sessions scheduled for later in spring 2025. We'll first begin with some exam background and development timeline information for the new 186 exam. If you were able to join for one of the framework overview webinars in fall of 2024, this content may look pretty familiar, but wanted to ground us in the work that has led up to the moment of the development of the 186 exam over the past almost 10 years. Beginning in 2018 with the agency's refreshed Special Education Strategic Plan, there were then a series of special education stakeholder forums held in the fall of 2018 through the spring of 2019. These forums culminated in new grade-banded special education educator standards, which were adopted in 2020. Following the special education standards development and adoption, from January 2021 until recently, the special education exam has been under development, and we have now entered the capacity building and exam launch phase with the launch of the 186 exam in September of 2025. The new special education educator standards are grade-banded, EC-6 special education standards, and our EC-12 special education standards. Each set of these new special education educator standards requires knowledge of grade level TEKS, age-appropriate development, age-appropriate knowledge of transition and special services, aid and grade-specific legal and ethical guidelines and requirements, as well as grade-appropriate collaboration strategies. Additionally, approximately 25% of the special education standards specifically address students with high support needs. The new special education standards reflect updated best practice in the field for serving our students, as well as a more specific definition of not only the knowledge a special educator should have, but the skills that they need to be prepared with to effectively support students across instructional settings. These standards are the foundation for the exam framework that will assess a candidate on their knowledge and skills. For our new exam timeline, again beginning with the adoption of those new special education standards in 2020, the past 3 years have been spent in exam development for the new 186 Special Education Specialist. In fall of 2024, there were a series of 4 framework overview and application process webinars hosted by the Educator Standards and Testing team. And as we move into spring 2025, as preparation manuals are available, we are hosting our preparation manual overview webinar as well as CRI deep dive webinars scheduled for later this spring. As a reminder, the new 186 Special Education Specialist exam launches in September of 2025. A few important key dates to call out as we approach the launch of the new Special Education Specialist exam. The preparation manual for the exam became available on March 6th, 2025. The representative form and interactive practice test will be available summer 2025. Registration opens for the new 186 Special Education Specialist EC-12 exam on June 3rd, 2025. The last day to take either the older 161 Special Education EC-12 or the 163 Special Education Supplemental exams is August 31st, 2025. The new 186 Special Education Specialist EC-12 launches September 2nd of 2025. And the last day to use a score on either 161 or 163 to recommend a candidate for certification is September 1st, 2026. As a reminder, the Special Education Specialist EC-12 certificate represents a new certification area. Programs who currently offer either the Special Education EC-12 or the Special Education Supplemental certificates will need to meet requirements to offer the new certificate and approve candidates for the new 186 exam. The 186 Special Education Specialist EC-12 exam will replace both the 161 Special Education EC-12 and the 163 Special Education Supplemental exams. Beginning 8/31/2025, there will be no separate supplemental special education exam. Please contact your assigned education specialist if you have any questions. In terms of exam structure, our older 161 Special Education EC-12 exam had a 5-hour seat time for candidates in which they needed to answer 100 multiple choice questions. As we look to the new 186 Special Education Specialist EC-12 exam, candidates will continue to have a 5-hour seat time in which they will need to complete 90 multiple choice questions, including cluster items, as well as complete one constructed response item. We'll now take a look at sample selected response and cluster items. There are two options to access the preparation manual for the 186 Special Education Specialist EC-12 exam. Through the Texas Certification website page, you can access the preparation manual via the website, or click the print icon to access the PDF version of the 186 preparation manual. We'll first take a look at the exam framework that is included in the 186 preparation manual. The 186 Special Education Specialist EC-12 exam is organized into the domains you see here. First, we have legal and ethical guidelines and knowledge of learners. The second domain, Domain 2, is assessment and program planning. Domain 3 is curricular knowledge and instructional practices. Domain 4 is professional collaboration, learning and responsibilities. The fifth and final domain is analysis and response, which includes our constructed response item. To call out here, the approximate percentage of the exam represented by each domain is listed here, with the highest percentage being Domain 3, curricular knowledge and instructional practices. We'll now take a look at sample selected response items that include detailed rationales. Included as part of the preparation manual for this exam are two sets of sample selected response, or SRIs. First are a number of sample SRIs that include full rationales, meaning a rationale is included both for the correct answer as well as rationales included for incorrect answers. There is also a set of sample selected response items that name the correct response for candidates as they prepare for their exam. Included in the 186 prep manual are 21 sample SRIs with full rationales and an additional 24 items with correct responses, for a total number of 45 sample selected response items included in the preparation manual. We'll now take a look at the components of each selected response item. There are a number of features you'll notice consistent to multiple choice questions that are consistent and representative of the overall approach to question design, with the goal of placing the candidate in a real Texas classroom with real students. A number of components will be present in most multiple choice questions on the 186 exam. First, the grade level will be provided to the candidate within the context of the question. Second, the candidate will also be provided the instructional context. Third, the candidate will be placed in a student or classroom context while a lesson is happening. And the questions will ask candidates to select the best, next, first, or most appropriate instructional strategy, intervention, or next step for them to take based on the context provided. Again, these components represent the overall approach to question design on the 186 exam. We'll now take a look at a sample selected response item from the preparation manual from Competency 2, Knowledge of Learners. Questions within this competency assess how a teacher leverages what they know about their students to address student needs. A special education teacher co-teaches in a 4th grade classroom. The special education teacher and general education teacher notice that a student who has been working at grade level for the first half of the school year has started turning in homework and classwork assignments late. The student frequently puts their head down on the desk and has fallen asleep during class on more than one occasion. When the teachers ask the student about the recent changes in their behavior in classwork, the student reports that they cannot complete their classwork due to fatigue resulting from frequent arguments in their home environment. The student mentions that their parents and guardians argue loudly for many hours each night, and the student has difficulty sleeping. Which of the following approaches would be most effective for the teachers to take with the student? Thinking about the components that we reviewed earlier, there are a number of things to highlight within this sample selected response item. First, the candidate is provided a grade level and an instructional context. The candidate is also provided the classroom or student context. Finally, the question asks the candidate to select the most effective approach for the teacher to take with the student. The correct response for sample selected response item 2 within the prep manual is A, working with the school counselor to develop supports for the student within the classroom and school environment. As a reminder, there are sample selected response items that provide the candidate a full rationale, including rationale for the correct response. The correct response, option A, is correct because certified school counselors can provide a comprehensive school counseling program in accordance with Chapter 33 of the Texas Education Code to all students, including students receiving special education services, and can also serve on the MTSS team. Collaborating with the school counselor in this way can allow the special education teacher to provide more comprehensive supports to the student. The preparation manual also provides rationales for the incorrect answer choices. Within the context of this question, option B is incorrect because it is not the special education teacher's role to develop plans with families related to families' personal matters. Option C is incorrect because there is no evidence that the student needs more stimulation or more challenging assignments. Providing these supports to the student would not be useful in reducing the student's fatigue or stress. Option D is incorrect because none of the conditions necessary under federal or state law to request a functional behavioral assessment have been met in this situation. We'll now take a look at a second multiple choice question with full rationale, this time from Competency 3, Assessment for Database Decision Making. Questions within this competency assess how a candidate utilizes data to develop an IEP and deliver instruction. A sixth grade student with an intellectual disability struggles to independently complete multi-step mathematics problems. A task analysis shows that the student frequently has difficulty utilizing steps that help with recalling multiplication facts. The student can complete the problem by referencing a multiplication table or receiving a teacher prompt. Which of the following statements is the best way to describe the student's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance in this area on the student's individualized education program? Again, the candidate is provided a grade level as well as a student eligibility area. We're provided student context. And the question asks the candidate to select the best way to describe the student's PLAF. The correct response for sample multiple choice question 4 within the prep manual is A. The student has difficulty completing multi-step mathematics problems and completes 20% of problems independently without accommodations. With the aid of a multiplication table or teacher prompt, the student can complete at least 90% of multi-step mathematics problems accurately. We'll now take a look at the full rationale provided for this sample multiple choice question. Option A is correct because the student's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance is a statement in a student's IEP that provides information on how the student's disability affects their involvement and progress in the general education curriculum. A PLAF is the foundation on which to build the student's IEP and should include components such as clear and objective baseline data and a description of the student's strengths, needs, and skill gaps. Other important components of a PLAF are an explanation of how gaps affect the student's learning and participation, an explanation of how the student's disability impacts their progress in the general curriculum, and information from the Admission, Review, and Dismissal Committee uses to determine what the student can achieve in 1 year. Rationales are also provided for incorrect answer choices. Option B is incorrect because it does not provide baseline data on the student or information on the student's needs or skill gaps. Options C and D are incorrect because they do not provide information about the multiplication tables or teacher prompts that support the student's progress in this area, which are important to know when considering what supports the student uses. We'll now take a look at a third sample multiple choice question with full rationale from Competency 8, Consultation and Collaboration. Questions within this competency assess how prepared a candidate is to work with other campus professionals or related service providers to support their students. Question 17 says, a special education teacher co-teaches in a 5th grade classroom and works with a student who is deaf and wears cochlear implants. The special education teacher has been providing interventions and accommodations to the student from their IEP for several months during reading lessons. The student is not making adequate progress on the reading IEP goals based on their most recent progress report. Which of the following approaches would be most effective for the special education teacher to take first in this situation? The candidate is provided both a grade level and an instructional context, as well as student context, and the question asks the candidate to select the most effective approach for the special education teacher to take first. The correct answer for multiple choice question 17 included in the preparation manual is answer choice B. Meeting with the teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing to ensure that accommodations are provided appropriately, and convening the student's ARD committee to review and revise the student's IEP goals if needed. A full rationale is provided for this sample question. Option B is correct because when a student is not making progress towards their IEP goals in areas in which they also work with a specialist, The special education teacher should first meet with that specialist to ensure they are taking all necessary steps to support the student according to the IEP. There may be other ways the student's accommodations should be applied, other information the specialist could provide, or other interventions or supports they could recommend to support the student in accessing the academic curriculum. Rationales are also provided for incorrect answer choices. Option A is incorrect because the special education teacher should not provide students with additional assistive technology without meeting with the student's specialist. In this case, the teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing and the student's ARD committee. A student's assistive technology is included in their IEP, and if additional assistive technology is requested, it should be made through the ARD committee. Option C is incorrect because even though parents and guardians know their children best, it is the special education teacher and the teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing who are trained in observing the student's reading progress. Option D is incorrect because if the student has free choice time during the school day, it is important that they are able to use the time for that purpose. Students should not have IEP goals that require them to spend excessive amounts of time on specific academic tasks. We'll now take a look at sample cluster items included within the 186 preparation manual, as well as the aligned rationales. Included in the 186 preparation manual are sets of cluster items with full rationales, including rationales for correct as well as incorrect answer choices. Sample cluster items are also provided with the correct response only. There are a total of 6 clusters included in the preparation manual with a total of 6 multiple choice questions, 2 sample clusters with full rationales, and 1 sample cluster with correct response only. We'll now take a look at the different components of cluster items. Within cluster items, candidates are provided a student work sample, student data, an IEP goal, a lesson plan, or other stimulus. Candidates are also provided 2 or more selected response items related to the same stimulus. These selected response items build on each other and/or send the candidate back to the stimulus in order to answer the question. These components represent the overall approach to question design for cluster items included as part of the new 186 exam. We'll now take a look at the first sample cluster item. As part of the stimulus, a special education teacher works with a 4th grade student with a specific learning disability in math calculation. The student worked on the following IEP goals during the last IEP period. Those 5 IEP goals are on the screen here. Within the stimulus, the candidate is provided a grade level, as well as student context or eligibility area. The candidate is then provided the student's progress on their IEP goals in this graph, and candidates are able to see a number of things on this graph. First, candidates can see the student's baseline or BOY data, as well as their mid-year progress. Next, the stimulus provides the candidate the student's most recent STAR data from the previous year. Then the first selected response item as part of the cluster is from Competency 3, Assessment for Data-Driven Decision Making. The special education teacher can most effectively use the results of the student's scores on the STAR exam to, again, the selected response item included as part of the cluster asks the candidate to select the most effective use of the student's STAR data. The correct response is C. Supplement progress monitoring data related to each IEP goal with information about state-required knowledge and skills data. A full rationale is provided for the first sample selected response item as part of this cluster. Option C is correct because the purpose of the STAR test is to determine a student's mastery of grade-level state curriculum standards in core subjects. Although STAR results do not directly measure progress towards IEP goals, the results can be used alongside discrete progress monitoring data to demonstrate the student's acquisition of knowledge and skills. Rationales are also provided for incorrect answer choices as part of the first SRI within the cluster. Option A is incorrect because the STAR test measures progress towards state curriculum standards in core subjects, including mathematics, and depending on the needs of the student, these assessment areas may not directly align with IEP goals. Given that the student STAR test mathematics score is a single metric, the special education teacher could not use it to determine if the IEP goals correspond with STAR assessment targets. Option B is incorrect because the STAR test is designed to globally measure academic growth and readiness for the next grade, not to provide benchmark data about progress towards individual IEP goals. Option D is incorrect because the STAR test is not designed to track progress towards IEP goals, but to provide a global measure of a student's annual learning growth in the core subject areas. The candidate would then interact with the second multiple choice question in the cluster from the same competency. The special education teacher plans to share the data with the student's parents' guardians at an upcoming ARD meeting. The parents' guardians are emergent bilingual and understand conversational English. Which of the following steps will best ensure that the parents' guardians have the opportunity to fully participate in the ARD committee meeting? This multiple choice question as part of the cluster asks the candidate to select the steps that will best ensure the parents and guardians can fully participate. With a correct response of A, providing the data to the parents' guardians in their home language and requesting a translator attend the meeting to communicate with the parents or guardians. Rationales are provided for both correct and incorrect responses for the second question in the cluster. Option A is correct because the parents' guardians have a right to access their child's progress monitoring data and STAR results and to have the ARD committee meeting held in their preferred language. Option B is incorrect because even if the data are mailed ahead of the ARD meeting, it is unlikely that the parents and guardians can fully access the information about their child if it is not presented in their preferred language. Option C is incorrect because the ESL specialist may not speak the home language of the parents or guardians, and it would be inappropriate for the ESL specialist to lead the ARD committee meeting. Option D is incorrect because recording the questions of the parents' guardians for a translator to respond to would not support the parent-guardian participation in the ARD committee meeting. This approach would minimize the participation of the parents' guardians and could lead to incorrect information given that the translator, not the committee members, would be responding to their questions. We'll now take a look at sample constructed response items included as part of the preparation manual. Each candidate will see and interact with one constructed response item on their exam. Although each candidate will receive information about a different sample student, each candidate will have the same constructed response assignment or charge. Candidates in a written response of approximately 400 to 600 words will need to identify an area of strength and of need for a sample student based on provided data. Candidates will also need to propose an accommodation, instructional strategy, or a general approach that would promote the student's access. Candidates will then need to explain why the proposed accommodation instructional strategy, or approach would be effective for their student, as well as describe a progress monitoring strategy for their recommended approach. Each constructed response item is reviewed for these three performance characteristics. First, completion, the degree to which the candidate completes the assignment by responding to each specific task in the assignment. Second, application of content, the degree to which the candidate applies the relevant knowledge and skills to the response accurately and effectively. And finally, third, support, the degree to which the candidate supports the response with appropriate evidence, examples, and explanations based on relevant content knowledge and skills. Constructed response items are scored on a scale from 1 to 4, with 4 as the highest possible score. Candidates may also receive a constructed response item score of U or B for unscorable responses or blank responses. Each candidate is provided a number of exhibits as part of their constructed response item that they can utilize in their written response. Each constructed response item contains the same 5 exhibit types, although the sample student and content of the exhibits will vary. First, candidates are provided a student profile. The student profile will provide a student name, grade level, and age. The student profile will also provide background information on the sample student's development as well as evaluation information. Student profile will include PLAF statements and educational history and information about the student's identified LRE, as well as the student's areas of interest and of strength. Exhibit 2 is IEP goals and progress. This exhibit provides candidates a snapshot of the student's current IEP goals and baseline, mid-year, and current IEP goal progress. Exhibit 2 also provides candidates a snapshot of the student's current accommodations. Exhibit 3, student assessment results, will provide the candidate a variety of assessment data as well as additional context to help the candidate understand the data they've been provided. Exhibit 4, learning objectives, success criteria, and student assignment. This exhibit provides the candidate more specific information within the context of a lesson taking place in a classroom. Exhibit 4 will provide the candidate a content area TEAC, a learning objective, and a student-facing success criteria and assignment. Finally, Exhibit 5, student work sample, will provide the candidate with a writing sample, a sample mouth calculation, or another student work sample. The first exhibit will always be the student profile. The candidate will see PLAF information, information about how old the student was when they were first evaluated, their area or areas of eligibility, current areas of parental concerns, and skills that the student is currently working on. The student profile will also include information on the student's previously mastered skills and STAR or other standardized assessment results. Candidates are provided sufficient background information on the student to make an informed decision about their recommendation for an instructional strategy or intervention within their written response. The second exhibit is IEP goals and progress. Again, candidates are provided a goal area, as well as student goals that are aligned to the profile and specific areas of needs addressed in the presenting concerns. Candidates are also provided baseline, mid-year, and current levels for each goal area. In the third exhibit, student assessment results, Candidates are provided assessment data to utilize in their selection of an accommodation, instructional strategy, or approach with the student. They are also provided context, in this case provided in the form of anecdotal notes, to help drop the candidate into the classroom with the sample student. Some helpful questions for candidates to consider as they review the student assessment results exhibit are: where has a student shown growth or progress? Where has a student maintained and or potentially regressed in their skills? And what insight does this data give you into the student as the candidate is selecting their intervention, strategy, or accommodation? Within the fourth exhibit, Learning Objective, Success Criteria, and Student Assignment, candidates are provided a grade level TEAC, an aligned classroom learning objective, a student-facing success criteria, and additional details about the assignment the student has been asked to complete. Finally, the fifth exhibit, Student Work Sample, will provide, in this case, a sample written response by the student. Some helpful questions for candidates to consider as they review the student work sample are: what did the student actually produce in response to their assignment? Where are candidates able to see evidence of mastery within the student's work sample? And where might the candidate see opportunities for additional support for the student based on what they produced in response to the assignment? We'll now take a moment to touch on two additional resources that are included as part of the website version only of the preparation manual. The website version of the preparation manual also provides candidates information on different approaches to take as they prepare for the exam. Candidates are provided information on how to approach unfamiliar question formats, approaches to answering selected response items, as well as approaches for preparing for the constructed response question. Here you can see the information that is provided to candidates on how to approach unfamiliar question formats. There is also an additional selected response item included as part of the approaches section. In this case, the sample selected response item as part of the approaches section is from competency 4, developing, implementing, and monitoring individualized programs. The sample selected response items reads: a special education teacher is a case manager for a 7th grade student receiving special education services for a specific learning disability in written expression. To best prepare for the student's ARD committee meeting, the special education teacher should: A, schedule a pre-ARD meeting with the students and their parents to ask what they would like the special education teacher to discuss during the meeting. B, administer a STAR practice test in the student in the English language arts and reading area. C, request that a full and individual initial evaluation be completed before the ARD meeting. Or D, prepare a summary of the student's progress monitoring data on their IEP written expression goals and objectives. The prep manual reads: as you read the question, think about what is required for ARD committee meetings and think specifically about what a special education teacher should do to prepare for it. This question requires understanding the actions a special education teacher should take to prepare to provide information on a student at an ARD committee meeting. Next, the candidate should look at response options and consider which of them describes the best action for the special education teacher to take to meet this goal. Rationales are provided for each of the options as the sample SRI included in the approaches section. Option A suggests that the special education teacher should obtain information to discuss about the student from the student themselves and the student's parents or guardian. It is important for the student and parent guardians to provide input and information at the ARD committee meeting, but the special education teacher must provide data that they have collected through work they have done with the student towards their IEP goals, and cannot solely rely on information from the student and parents' guardians. Therefore, option A can be eliminated as a correct response to this question. Option B suggests that administering a STAR practice test to the student in ELAR would be enough for the special education teacher to do to prepare for the upcoming ARD meeting. A STAR practice test could provide useful information on how the student performs on that assessment and could inform the teacher's work with the student to it to some extent, but would not provide specific information about how the student is progressing towards their IEP goals. Therefore, option B can be eliminated as the correct response to this question. Option C suggests that the special education teacher should request a full and individual initial evaluation to be completed for the student before the ARD committee meeting. An FIIE would have been completed before the student received an IEP, so it would not need to be conducted again and would not provide information on the student's progress towards their IEP goals. Therefore, option C can be eliminated as the correct response to this question. Option D suggests that to prepare for the ARD committee meeting, the special education teacher should first make sure the progress monitoring data has been collected on each of the student's IEP goals and objectives, and then analyze and evaluate that data. Additionally, the special education teacher should summarize this data to be able to talk about it during the ARD committee meeting, to be able to provide concrete and measurable information on the student's strengths, needs, and progress in this area. Of the options offered, preparing a summary of the student's progress monitoring data on their IEP goals and objectives provides the most comprehensive and thorough review of a student's strengths, needs, and progress, and is the most informative and useful way for the special education teacher to prepare for and contribute to the ARD committee meeting. Therefore, the correct response option is D. Strategies are also provided to the candidate to approach the cluster items. Included in the web version as well are additional preparation resources aligned to the certification field. Within the web version in section 6, you can find the Chapter 235 Special Education Standards, journal articles and publications from the field of special education, some TEA resources including the Dyslexia Handbook, vertical alignment charts, and more, as well as a list of professional organizations. We'll now spend a moment touching on CRI deep dives and work sessions upcoming in spring of 2025. The 186 Special Education Specialist Preparation Manual Overview webinar was originally held on Wednesday, March 26th. There are 2 upcoming options for CRI deep dive and work sessions later this spring. Within these work sessions, participants will engage with an overview of the constructed response item, including the CRI prompt and exhibits, and also work in collaborative groups to review sample CRI responses, share best practices for candidate success on the CRI, and discuss needed curriculum updates. If you are planning to attend a CRI deep dive and work session this spring, to best prepare, you should first review the sample CRI for each of the score points 1 through 4 included in the preparation manual. Then reflect on the following guiding questions. What differences do you see between each of the sample responses? What do you notice about how each response utilizes data from the provided exhibits? What does each response tell us about what candidates know and can do? And how might you think about supporting your candidates as they prepare to complete a CRI? Thank you for viewing the 186 Special Education Specialist EC-12 Preparation Manual Overview. We hope to see you soon.